The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I am joined this week by all of my awesome co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
Shane Kelly.
Actually, I said all. I meant just the two of you guys. Nate's not here. See you soon, Nate. So, we are talking this week about Apple Arcade. The reason this came up is that my Apple Arcade, I did the 1-year Apple Arcade subscription the minute that Apple Arcade became available. And very recently, my subscription came up for renewal. And I thought to myself, I thought I was going to let that Apple Arcade subscription lapse because I hadn't been playing much on Apple Arcade lately. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll let this lapse and I'll pick it up again as soon as something interesting that I want to play comes out. And then Apple knew exactly what my game was, and they released a bunch of new and interesting stuff on Apple Arcade like a week before my renewal would have taken place. And of course, I did renew. So I thought it might be a good time for us to talk about some of the new stuff on Apple Arcade and other stuff that we've checked out in the last little while on Apple Arcade. Basically, just like take the temperature of Apple Arcade as a service and some of the cool stuff on it, here in 2021. So we're going to kind of go around robin and talk about some of the stuff that we've played on Apple Arcade lately. And we won't be going into as much depth as we usually do on a full game episode, obviously, but we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff here, sort of rapid fire. So who's going first?
The first thing I wanted to kind of tinker around with, and I've probably been playing this for maybe 2 or 3 really short sessions, because this is a grab bag episode. But it's a game called Wonderbox. Wonderbox is from a company called Acquirus Game Studio. I don't think I've seen anything else from them, and it's exclusive to Apple Arcade. I would kind of describe it as a cross between something like a Mario Maker, where you have a kind of design your own level element, and a kind of a light platforming adventure game. It is a game about both kind of playing other people's little short adventure games that they build inside, and then using things that you unlock to create your own and to customize your character. The art style of it is my absolute favorite thing about it, because it really is a gorgeous looking game. The characters have the kind of design style and look and animation of like a high quality children's animation. They're very cartoony. But they're very cool and iconic looking. And the level design, everything is, from the name, little boxes. It's kind of, I'd say like volumetric, almost like a Minecraft kind of design, but the style is very cartoony. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of that game Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
Where
You
yes.
have a little level that's a box, and you can turn it and look at it from any angle. So you're controlling your character, but you can also rotate the entire level and look at it from different angles. And I've been really impressed with the games that I've seen people be able to create inside here. Like it really do give you a lot of good tools. I did one that was kind of a mystery where there's like a royal dinner, and the king asks you to go and find something in the castle, and you're going around and exploring the castle to find it. I've played others where there was a little bit more of a combat oriented thing, and they give you a lot of neat tools that you can use or give the players in the levels that you design. So I think it would be a hard one for us to review on a more full basis, because it's so the majority of the game, it seems to be the user generated content. But it would be really fun to build something in here. I tried some of the tools for creating stuff, and they were easy and quick to understand and fun. And the kind of cues of user generated content, all of the things that I've picked, which were just the featured things, all of those were great and fun to play. So I'm pretty into it. I also liked like I said, I like the design of the characters, but I like that you're customizing the characters and you collect different heads and legs and bodies as you go. And like you start off with a bunch of, diverse looking humans, but you can unlock, okay, now I want my character to be a cat or whatever, or be wearing a weird jacket, stuff like that. So that seems like it'd be really fun to do. And kind of within the context of a bunch of user-generated content, I'm kind of curious how they create something that has that kind of progression to it. Like, it seems like it's mainly XP, but like, how are you doling that out based on playing these little adventures? And I also really always find it interesting when they have a good system for surfacing like good user content in a game like this, because it's something that some games will try and then kind of fail at, and this one, at least so far, has only given me good stuff to play. So, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you checked that out. It visually looks really, really good. I think it might be the best looking thing on Apple Arcade in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of really pretty cool stuff on Apple Arcade, but the visuals are just like really striking in that sort of cute cartoon or kids media kind of way. And I don't know, I usually bounce off of games that are sort of based largely around user generated content. But yeah, if there's a good curation system for playing stuff that other people have created, then I don't know, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I was also, I will say, particularly impressed by, I figured in something like this where you're having users like put in pretty much all your content, you'd have adventures where it's just like, open the box, do this, do that, little fetch quest. They got more complicated than that. And there seemed to be a lot that they could do with like the NPCs and like what they do. So I don't know how you get all of that, because I didn't really get that far into creating my own stuff, but I'm very curious about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to see more of it. Yeah. It's, it seems like one of the things that Apple put a lot of money behind. It is totally exclusive to Apple Arcade. It seems designed for touch because they've got this like creation, the level creation tools. And I just looked at their website. You can play this with a controller, but if you're playing on something without a touchscreen like the Apple TV, you can't use the level creator. You can only play, which I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But it's also sort of like, definitely seems like they kind of came at this as an Apple Arcade thing. So yeah, I don't know. Very cool. And I hope to check it out. That game, Wonderbox, makes perfect sense as like why Apple did this. It makes perfect sense for Apple Arcade. The game that I played, one of the games I played, I was left with a real question of like, I wonder why this for Apple Arcade. Not that it was bad, but it was just one of the things that I played on Apple Arcade that was like the biggest like, wow, that seems like the kind of like why did Apple put money into getting this on Apple Arcade specifically?
Yeah,
and that's Hitchhiker. First off, Hitchhiker is a sort of narrative adventure game of the kind that we like to cover on this show. We cover a lot of games in this sort of vibe, right? Where you are exploring a narrative in a sort of first-person way. The specific like pitch on Hitchhiker is that it's a mystery game set on lost highways, and you play as a nameless hitchhiker who is hitching rides. You don't remember who you are or why you're hitchhiking, and everything is slightly surreal, or rather extremely surreal at times. And so you're hitchhiking across, some version of America, getting rides from increasingly strange people through increasingly strange places. And there is a central mystery, and I don't want to spoil much here, but I think it's probably safe to just explain that, like, you have, as you begin remembering your own history, you realize that your girlfriend is missing. And so the sort of big thrust of the game is like trying to remember why your girlfriend is missing and how you can find her. That's sort of the overall plot here. It's available on all kinds of stuff like PS4, Switch, Steam, etc. But here on Apple Arcade, it plays pretty well in terms of like touchscreen and everything. Although it definitely feels a bit like it might have been designed for a mouse. Even playing it on a controller felt a little funky.
This reminds me of Virginia.
Yeah, actually, that's the 100% main touch point for me here too. Is like it definitely, if you played Virginia. This doesn't do the sort of film-like editing exactly, but it does do some other really interesting storytelling stuff. So the game takes place across 5 rides that you hitch. But they're all sort of strung together. You don't see the scenes in between when you're like hitching the ride, wake up in somebody's car each time. But a lot of and there are some basic puzzles, things like, you have an inventory or your backpack, and there are times where somebody like asks to see something in your backpack. There's some really, really basic puzzles. Like there'll be like there's a point where you have to rewire something and just connect wire A to point B in a few different ways. Like the puzzles felt a little tacked on. The real thrust here is the narrative. And I want to kind of explain a little bit about the kind of surrealism that we're doing here. I don't want to give like major spoilers, but I do want to talk about my favorite ride, which is ride number 2. To set it up a little bit, the first ride, you're hitching a ride with a raisin farmer across a bunch of farmland. And he tells you some very strange things, and there's more to him than meets the eye. The second ride, though, you are hitching a ride through suburbia, through a maze-like labyrinth of suburban homes. You're just turning left, right through an endless labyrinth of nearly identical houses. And you're riding with this guy who's sort of like a professorial dude with a bunch of Greenpeace type stickers in his Volvo. And to kind of explain, this is not plot relevant, which is why I feel like it's okay. It's not relevant to sort of the main mystery, which is why I feel like it's okay to spoil something from the second of 5 rides. So he's looking for his dog, who's been missing for 5 months. And the reason that the dog has been missing for 5 months is that the guy that you're riding with got trapped for 5 months because he was absent-minded when riding an escalator and got to the bottom where the crack where the stairs disappear goes and fell through the crack into a space below. And the space below the escalator, because, like you do, in the space below the escalator were dozens of people who had also fallen through the crack into the space below the escalator. There was a large sort of cavernous room down there, but due to budget cuts, they only let people out once a year. And so, but in order to keep them fed, they fill mannequins with food and toss them down the escalator because there's no other way to get things down. Only people can fall through the cracks. So they have to fill up mannequins full of food and toss them down the escalator, which is all fine until somebody who doesn't look lifelike enough falls down the escalator and everyone seizes upon them thinking that they're full of food.
Holy shit.
Horrifying and interesting stuff, right? This is the story that he tells you. And most of the story happens in dialogue. The dialogue plays out. You're not like clicking through dialogue. It's all fully voiced. This guy has a real vibe to him.
Yeah, it sounds like he's got a hell of a vibe to him.
So like that's great. And occasionally the game plays with its visuals in interesting ways. So for example, that particular story, while he's talking about it, it cuts from you're sitting in his car in this 3D environment where you're able to look around to something that looks a little bit like a picture book with like ink illustrations of this scenario as he's describing it to you. And there's other places in the game where it tries other art styles and other stuff too. So anyway, I thought it was very, very interesting. I didn't think the ending was particularly great, but it did keep me interested in it throughout the game, and the surrealism of it continues to escalate. There's lots of neat stuff like, tumbleweeds doing very creepy things outside your car, that kind of stuff. So anyway, Hitchhiker is probably only a couple of hours. So it's definitely in our short game territory. And it's the kind of game that I think I probably would have been interested in covering for the show anyway. So I would definitely recommend people check out Hitchhiker. It's on Apple Arcade as well as a bunch of other stuff. It's also, though, just one of those things where like, I got through this game and I was like, man, Apple, though? Like, why this? Like, why, guys? But I mean, hey, I'm glad it was available. I could play it on my phone and on iPad and everything. But yeah, it was a weird one.
I think they have this kind of get one of every Pokemon quality for Apple Arcade, and as long as it looks good, I think it's got to be pretty. But then I'll take one of everything, please.
Yeah, and it's pretty enough. It's fine. It looks pretty decent. If you like 3-dimensional character models who are only minimally expressive but have really good voice acting, then yeah, this will do it.
That's my favorite thing. What are you talking about?
So, for something completely different, I'm bringing a monsters expedition to the table. And guys, this game is lovely. I know we overuse that term. We say charming all the time. This game actually is lovely and charming. It is the ultimate wind down game. It's a game that I was playing before bed on the iPad, and then Justin took and was playing in bed on the iPad because it is so very chill. It's a puzzle game, but it has a lot of traits that make it like way better than your average puzzle game. First of all, it has what Rock Paper Shotgun called a gentle coaxing of understanding, which is where like you figure out the mechanics, like a lot of the times by accident. You kind of, as you explore the world, you find out more things you can do. But it's not like you get to level 4, or in this case, that you travel to a new island, and it's suddenly like, and now we're introducing a new mechanic. No, it's clear you have had all the traits from the beginning, all the tools, but you've never needed to overcome specific obstacles. You've never had to do things, which I don't want to stress it out too much and be like, it's a Metroidvania, but it feels that kind of like you can go back and discover stuff. It's not, but
okay.
But you have, you learn something. You're cutting down these trees. And you're pushing them around to make logs, and the logs will let you go to different islands or build rafts or do a lot of different things I won't spoil. But you learn just by experimenting. There's an undo button, which every puzzle game should have an undo button. And if you didn't put one in your puzzle game, I am officially mad at you. But this game has an undo button, so you can experiment. You can say, like, what happens if I push this log this way? What happens if I, make a corner? What happens if I throw things in the water? What happens if I just walk to the edge of the island? And the answer is you sit and you dangle your feet over the edge, and it is delightful. It's so nice. And it's that kind of spirit of the game where you just kind of try things. The plot, as it were, is that you're a monster you've got a cute little backpack, and you are hiking around in this top-down world, finding ways to go from island to island of this exhibition on the history of humanity of Englandland. And you are getting little exhibitions, little exhibits on each. It's expedition, but you're seeing exhibitions as you go around. And you get these little dips of just wonderful writing. So one of them is it's clearly a Peloton bike or whatever, or exercise spinner, or whatever was Peloton last year. And it's labeled laundry storage rack. This particularly ornate laundry rack features a surprising number of moving parts. Once or twice per year, a human would clear away the clothing and sit on the contraption, pedaling furiously. Presumably, this reactivated the rack's storage power, as laundry would soon start to reappear.
That is really good.
It's really good, and there's so many of them.
That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah, no, it's. I've played just a little bit of this, and it definitely did draw me in. The writing was really cute, but it's also like it's. So puzzle-wise, it's basically slightly tweaked Sokoban, right?
I mean, they created Sokoban. That was the original game. Was Sokoban.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, I remember hearing about that one. I've never played that one, but yeah, like if you're not familiar, Sokoban is sort of there was a game titled Sokoban many years ago, but it's sort of in the same way that like roguelike became a genre. It's talking about box pushing puzzle games where a big part of the puzzle is that of course like the blocks block your path, and you can only push or pull them if there's space to do so.
If you played Pokemon, that was in there.
Yeah, it's in everything as a sort of a mini game, or whatever. Zelda games have Sokoban bits in them, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was a kind of puzzle that I didn't think I wanted to play anymore. Yeah, but this one I did.
And they also have a lot of very innovative changes to the mechanic. Again, like it is you at the heart of it, you're just pushing and pulling stuff, but they have found a lot of new ways to deal with that. It feels, as I said, it's incredibly good if you're feeling anxious or chill, because they call it an open world puzzle game, in that you can just kind of abandon a puzzle and move on to another place. There's even fast travel, later. So if you're really stuck, you can just kind of abandon a puzzle and move on. And the game is like more than happy for you to do that. Or if you're mad, again, just walk to the edge and dangle your feet for a while, which I did. But it's they've got so many good touches. You know, the little swaying grass, there's, you know, wind noises, like things kind of wobble. It's those kind of touches that make you, while you're stuck on a puzzle, just feel really safe and in good hands. So it's got the mechanics and it's got the charming world. Monsters Expedition is chef's kiss good.
That's awesome.
For someone who doesn't like this type of puzzle normally. So this is...
Yeah, and
to me, the thing that ruins them is that they are so often that, like, you know, we need to put a puzzle into our game, so let's add this. And it's usually your player character who's normally out there running around super fast with a giant sword slashing everything apart. And now he has to, like, with great effort, drag crates back and forth.
There's a dragon around a corner,
in a
and
game
yet you were trying to move a barrel.
And they really want to show, like, maybe how strong he is, and, like, you know, by making the crate, like, super big, and, like, now it drags with a horrible noise, and you look like you're pushed 50 million times, and you never would know where the crate goes. So I can see how I would never ever want to. It takes a real recommendation to make me want to play a game based entirely around that idea. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm not usually even that big of a puzzle guy, and this one was very charming to me. So, like,
that's great.
Definitely worth checking out.
I'm not as into spatial puzzles as you would think, but this is usually my husband's, like, number one genre. But this one I really liked. So
I've not been able to wait to recommend this one to you guys. It's called Sneaky Sasquatch. Have you heard of Sneaky Sasquatch?
So I will admit that when I first saw all the stuff on Apple Arcade, I thought Sneaky Sasquatch and Monsters Expedition were the same game. For a while, for a long time, because they both feature hairy protagonists, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the number one category that I get game recommendations in now. I just
it's got to be a tag on Steam, right?
On Steam, yeah, the hairy protagonist.
I think I hope Sneaky Sasquatch is like Tiny Thief, and then I never checked it out, so I can't wait to know what this game actually is.
It's not at all what you might think. At least it wasn't what I expected. What it is it is a gigantic open world like adventure where so your main character is what I was not expecting is like the best like open world game since GTA 5. You heard it here folks.
Oh.
But this is a great open world game. Like my what I really like about the game is it's so like cute and colorful, but for what seemed like a small space, like this little park, first off, the space is a lot larger than I thought at first, and because you can get to a lot of places around the park, but there's just so much to do in this game. Like the main mechanic of the game is you're a Sasquatch in a national park, and there is a park ranger roaming around the park, and if he sees you, he will chase you back to the cabin where you live, right?
Okay.
And you have a hunger meter, and so you go out into the national park, and you can walk around by like tap and hold to like move in a particular direction, or if you need to sneak, I think this is just a lovely use of the touchscreen throughout the game. But in this, to sneak, you tap instead of tap and hold, you like tap your finger to like tiptoe, which is absolutely great. And so you find like, you know, campers, and they're like igloo coolers full of food. And if you get to a little igloo cooler full of food, you can tap on it and it'll open it up. And then you drag, at that point, the like item interacting interface, which is like comes up a lot in the game. There's so many things to interact with, is basically, you know, it shows you the cooler, and then you tap and drag to open the lid on the cooler, and then you tap and drag to drag the food out of the cooler and into your backpack. And you can fill up your backpack with food.
Monsters with backpacks.
But when you find like a picnic table, you can dump all of the food out on the picnic table, and then you're dragging the food into the Sasquatch's mouth, and he is not a clean eater. Aesthetically, this is very similar to like this is basically like, I mean, it's a satisfying game, but like visually and in a lot of ways, like in terms of how it plays, it reminds me of like the Toca Boca games for like little kids.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
You remember those?
It has that
and the super indie games too of like, can the girl put on the makeup? It's like,
yeah. And there, in fact, they actually have one of those I'm thinking of in particular where you're like cooking and feeding monsters and they like make messes, which is my son loves. And he loves to watch this game too. When I play this, he can't actually control it. He can do a little bit like walking around, but he can't, I should probably try it on him again. It's been a while since we played this, but there are a lot of things I'll just list a few things you can do in this game. You can talk to a fox who will give you little mini missions that are things like the fox. It's like a very troublesome fox. He says, "Hey, the ranger's snoring has been keeping me awake. So I want you to go into the ranger station while he's asleep and find some way to make the fire alarm go off." So you can go in there and turn on the stove and like take some shit out of your backpack and light it on fire.
I'm completely sold on this game.
Yeah, and or you can like go and steal a canoe. Oh, well, you can take food back and sell it to a raccoon for coins, and then use the coins to buy items like a fishing rod or a golf. So you could buy from the raccoon, Reagan. I know you love golf games.
Of course,
this is a golf game. You can buy a golf club from the raccoon, and then play a quick 9 holes of golf on the golf course. You could buy a fishing rod and go fishing at the lake. You can get chased around by the park ranger some more while doing any of these things. And if you're getting chased around too much, you can get a disguise. You can get one of many disguises.
Very Grand Theft Auto.
Yes, to disguise yourself as a human of various different jobs. It actually is kind of like Hitman in that way.
That's awesome.
You can get a camera and fill it up with photos that you take. You can apply for a taxi license and drive people around.
So what I'm hearing is secretly Sneaky Sasquatch is all of the games in Apple Arcade. So you got NeoCab, you got a taxi license, you got Clap Hands Golf. You've
it's absolutely all of those things, plus scuba diving, plus driving a race car, exploring sunken ships.
Who needs any other game?
Surfing. There's a lot. And also, like the main progression of the game is collecting all the pieces of a treasure map, because the main thrust of the story is you want to get the treasure so that you can save the park. Because it's going to be, I don't know, repossessed or something.
National park.
Okay, sure. Yeah. This is absolutely a plus game for me.
That's awesome. I looked at this and I thought this was like I thought this was like a children's game. Like, I don't know. It didn't nothing
is.
about,
I mean, all games are for children. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Given.
We own.
Okay. You're.
This is a baby game for babies.
Okay.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, I looked at this and it didn't look appealing to me, based on the material just like in the app store. But while you were talking, I just went through and scrolled through their Twitter, and just like literally everything. There's like tons of little videos on their Twitter of this game in action, and every single one of them made me want to play it. Like this looks great. I definitely want to give this a shot. Now, this looks really
I am
fun.
so hyped for this. Thank you for bringing it to our table.
This is also another Apple Arcade exclusive. This looks like this is the same developer that did Dark Echo and Splitter Critters, as well as Spec and Sneaky Sasquatch are both on Apple Arcade. So, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll say the one downside to this game is on games on my phone, I really want to be something that I can do in like really quick bursts. But this is a game that I really want to play in longer sessions than I'll usually do phone games. Like there's a real loop to like sneaking around and like getting food and like reaching farther and farther away from your campsite that makes me want to spend long sessions with this game.
I just purchased a new Apple TV. Like they just came out with the refreshed Apple TV, and I've been wanting a new streaming box for a little while. And I wasn't going to buy the Apple TV that was out previously because it hadn't been updated since like 2017 or some horrible thing like that. And the remote was garbage. The new one is updated in some small ways and has a brand new remote, and I bought it. And one of the things I'm most excited about is pairing a game controller to it and playing some of these Apple Arcade games. So I don't know how well this one in particular will play with a controller. The touchscreen interface you were just mentioning sounds pretty good, but if this plays okay with a controller, I could see this being really good on like a Apple TV 4K or something.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I just remembered one more thing I wanted to say about it is there's a newspaper that you can find, and the newspaper, I don't know why this is just so funny to me, but it's just called The Newspaper. The headline is The Newspaper, and the headlines on the front of it will be things like, "Is it raining?" And yeah.
Question: is the Sasquatch up for Dirtbag of the Year, or is he actually not a dirtbag at all?
I don't think the Sasquatch is, but maybe the fox or the raccoon are. I think definitely the fox is. I think we'll definitely see some non-human. We can't keep nominating non-human characters.
But if they keep being dirtbags,
people will start to think.
We can't resist.
Yeah, that's true.
We
have
one
keep an eye
human
out for a good dirtbag
so far.
Yeah, Mord. Mord was a dirtbag, and she was great. So the next one on the list is one that this is the reason that I renewed my Apple Arcade subscription, basically. So to back up just a second. So there's a very, very long-running series of golf games that began, I think, on the PlayStation 1 or maybe 2, but it's always been PlayStation exclusive, called the Everybody's Golf series. I think it's Mina de Golf in Japan. They localized it in Europe as Everybody's Golf, which is more of like a direct translation of the title. And then in the US, it was always called Hot Shots Golf. And it's by a developer called Clap Hanz. And they've been making these golf games. It's a Japanese developer. They've been making just the Hot Shots Golf series for a very, very long time, like since the early PlayStation era. I'm pretty sure PlayStation 1, I hope I'm remembering that right. And I've played quite a lot of these games over the years, especially the most recent one for PlayStation 4, which is they eventually, with the PlayStation 4 version, they dropped the Hot Shots name and just went back to calling it Everybody's Golf worldwide, which, not the greatest title in the world, Everybody's Golf, but it's
people's golf.
Right. Yeah. I would have preferred just Everybody Golf sounds better, or something like a command.
Everybody golf now.
Exactly. But anyway, doesn't matter. These games are really in a good sweet spot for golf games. So like if you've played a lot of golf games, there's a huge variety of approaches. There's games like, the Mario Golf games that go full on into like there's item pickups, and there's like loop-de-loops, and there's, things that will eat your ball, and there's like special balls that do weird stuff, that kind of stuff, right? All kinds of stuff on that end. And then there's like much more simulation-y golf games on the other side, things like some of the PGA Tour golf games, or, there's lots of games on that end too. Everybody's Golf has always fallen right in the middle and has this really interesting mix where it does have these like colorful characters. In a lot of the games you get to like design a character or pick from a variety of like cartoonish looking characters. And the golf is a little heightened, but it's basically golf, right? So you've got this really, beautiful courses that look at least semi-realistic, like weather effects and things like that. They just really nail a sort of like, what is a good ideal golf game that's going to please everybody and be fun? And Everybody's Golf has always been super, super fun, or at least it's the point on that golf game line that I find most appealing. But they've always been PlayStation exclusive. Well, when my Apple Arcade, subscription was running out, and they released that thing of, the big thing saying like, here's all the new games that are coming to Apple Arcade. way down on that list, pretty far down, where I think, I don't think Apple really, cares that much about this game. It was, they just needed a golf game, right? But like they got Clap Hanz to make a game for Apple Arcade exclusively called Clap Hanz Golf. That's Hanz, Hanz. Clap Hanz Golf is Everybody's Golf. It's a mobile version of Everybody's Golf. And there's a few tweaks that are slightly different from the PlayStation games, but apparently all they needed to do to like do their thing, and I'm sure that PlayStation owns the, Everybody's Golf name, right? But apparently all they needed to do was change the name, and, and it's Everybody's Golf with the serial numbers filed off. And it's really, really good on a phone. They've got excellent graphics that look just like the PlayStation 4 version for the most part. And the physics is all right, and the golf courses are nice, and everything about it that I've checked out so far is just exactly what I would want out of one of these games.
How are the carts?
There's no golf carts in this. That's actually, now that you mention it. There are a few things about this that are different. There's definitely some things that they did, like trying to make this game more mobile friendly. And I think they've almost all been really, really good changes for that format. So the first thing is that they changed from so standard Everybody's Golf would usually control with the sort of 3-click power meter mechanic for golf swings. Most golf games, they fall into one of two camps for how do you control a golf swing on a game. The sort of classic approach, which is that there's a sort of a meter. Usually it's kind of like going zoop, 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 back and forth, and you have to click once to set like the power of your swing, and then click again when it reaches a certain point on that meter to click to get the control on your swing. And there might be other things that you do to fine tune it for things like backspin. But that basic mechanic has been the standard since like that originated with like Nintendo's golf game for the NES, and has been basically the standard for golf games across the whole industry, right? There are other golf games that use a more direct control mechanic.
Oh my gosh, my darling brother. My darling.
What?
Flesh of my flesh, my identical twin, my clone.
Yes?
We don't have time for the entire history of golf games.
I thought that's where you were going, but I'm laughing because that's exactly when Nate showed up.
Okay.
So Nate just showed up for Shane to read Reagan.
Oh, hi Nate. You just showed up right in time for me to bore everyone with golf game talk. Listeners, we weren't sure if Nate was joining us for this one, but he's just hopped on. That. So I'll try and finish this up quickly, Shane. I appreciate that you're keeping me on track. I appreciate it, Shane. But let me get to the important stuff. So they switched from a 3-click meter mechanic to a more direct thing where you're swiping on the touchscreen, which feels a lot like
it didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. You can't.
No,
this is
the one thing that he really has to explain.
You made it longer.
Like no. As someone who played this for a few minutes, he actually has to explain this.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the key change. They changed to a swing mechanic where you're basically doing a golf swing on the touchscreen with your finger, and that feels very direct. And I know why they did it. Right, it makes perfect sense why they made that change. I find that not particularly that's not what I like out of it. I prefer something that like the 3-click meter is basically judging you on timing, whereas this is sort of more of a dexterity challenge, and I don't like that as much personally. But for what it is, it works really, really well, and I've had a lot of fun playing it that way. And I've also played it with a controller, and they do that basically by having you do that same swing feel with one of the analog sticks, which feels a lot like some of the PGA Tour games. So it's definitely even though this isn't the particular mechanic for this style that I really like, it is done very, very well. The other big change is that this happens in a parallel world where the rules of golf have changed to a team sport where you have a team of little characters and each one of them plays one hole. So in a very mobile friendly format, they've switched from doing like 9 or 18 hole round games to doing 3-hole games. And you pick 3 of your dudes and each one of them does one hole. Shane, stop it. We're talking about golf here. It's sacred, Shane. Get your mind out of the gutter. So I really do appreciate that it's got this much faster play. You know, something that can sometimes be frustrating in everybody's golf is that, you know, even 9 holes of golf can sometimes take a while. Doing 3 holes of golf makes it much more approachable for a mobile format. And even if you're not playing on mobile, if you're like sitting down to play long periods, like I just find that like a really nice format, doing just 3 holes at a time. Cause you don't get down to like, you know, hole, you know, 9 out of 18 and screw something up and realize that you've just wasted a bunch of time and you're not going to win. So I really, really like that change a lot. This game is great. If you like golf games, or even if you don't, I think that Clap Hanz Golf is probably the best golf game on mobile. And for me, it was 100% the reason that I renewed my Apple Arcade subscription. I was so excited to see it, and I'm playing it constantly. Shane, was that short enough for you? Sorry.
No, we're good.
Thank you all. Nate, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you were able to make it.
Yeah, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to jump in. I haven't been on an episode for a handful of weeks now, and I just squeezed in here at the end of this one. So, you know, we talk about the kind of the premise of our show is fitting games into your life. And lately, I have been failing at managing that. So things are clearing up a little bit for me now, though. So I should be able to be on more consistently. But I didn't want to miss this one. And I almost didn't.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
So something that I was missing from Apple Arcade was the 3 slot on my phone. The thing I play because I've got 2 minutes and I want to play something that's skill-based and like a little tricky, but I know the rules. I'm basically getting something new every time. And there really wasn't one. I enjoy Dear Reader. That is the game where you're taking books and you're dropping words into it, or, you know, finding word, you know, it's like a reader game. But those take a little bit of time, and if you get interrupted, there are timers running. It doesn't really work in that situation, for me at least. Although I do really like Dear Reader, and I think people should play it. I'm really excited because they've brought to Apple Arcade a bunch of Zach Gage games that I've been wanting to try and never did, because I wasn't good enough at Sudoku to buy Good Sudoku, his game, even though it promised to like fix the boring parts of Sudoku. I wasn't into Sudoku enough to try it. So I opened it up, tried it. Turns out, if you do put like an autoplay feature on a Sudoku game, it's so much more fun. And I can finish like the easy ones literally in under a minute, if you know the rules. And I'm playing as like an expert, and there's still 2 more levels. Like, I've learned about like locked candidates, and they're trying to teach me about X-Wing and all these like actual Sudoku tricks but because the game goes so fast, they basically automate the really easy stuff. And they fill in all the boxes. So you actually do need to learn, like, where you get stuck is where you need the logic leaps. It'll like just autoplay through a bunch of stuff and fill the boxes. But there's great note taking. It'll actually teach you the skills you want. And there are hint buttons that if you're just tired. I got vaccinated for my second shot this week, and I went from expert down to like advanced because I couldn't play Sudoku anymore.
Oh no.
And that was basically how I knew I'd been affected.
Nice.
I was like, I can't even like deal with it. I was like, I can't deal with these little boxes, but I've recovered. I'm back up to our normal level. That, and also Flip Flop Solitaire, which is a solitaire where you play with multiple decks, and the innovation is every game is winnable, and you can go in either direction. So instead of just putting a queen on a king, you can put a king on a. Going king, queen, jack. You can go in the reverse order if you want. Yeah, have you played this?
No, but I just love the idea. I feel like every game should be winnable. Like I understand, you know, random number generator and like procedural creation and whatnot. And like, but I just feel like no matter how tough you make your game, there should be a win state. It's really annoying in some of those games where
and I'll reset the deck because I'll be like, how am I supposed to win? Like, I know it's supposed to be winnable. Like, it's so easy, especially in a solitaire game, just be like, the deck is broken. And there's so many in normal solitaire you can't actually beat. So it's nice to know that it's you and not the game. I know that there's also really bad chess, which is you learn chess by having completely random configurations of the board. So you end up learning what all the pieces can do because you'll play with like 12 bishops.
So I've been playing a lot of chess over the last like 9 months, and what I've recently really learned is that I am really bad at chess. I used to think
bad at chess.
I used to think I was good. That used to be a game that I felt like I was competent at, and I just feel really dumb now. And I think maybe I need to start playing really bad chess because I'm really bad at chess, and maybe it'll help me get not really bad at chess, or it'll make me even worse.
I mean, it can't hurt.
That's a good point.
I have to interject with a game recommendation that's kind of outside the scope of the show, but I just have to say real quick. There's a board game called Tack.
Oh, yeah.
That is very chess. It's basically fantasy chess. And it's from
the Rothfuss books, right?
Exactly, yeah. So he made up a game in his books called Tack. But then James Ernest of Cheap Ass Games, who's like one of my favorite game designers of all time. Reagan and I have had lots of his games. He made it into like a full-fledged kind of chess-esque game. And I think it's absolutely great. It's a super fun game. And they just did a new release of it that comes with super premium pieces, like multiple boards with different art and like really nice chunky wooden tiles.
Love a premium piece.
So I definitely recommend.
Bring Tack to Apple Arcade. But yeah, these games are they've been released before on iOS, but they're that perfect sweet spot of a puzzle game that I didn't know if I would like, and there's no demo version. So, and there are genres that I've kind of bounced off of. I mean, not solitaire, but I wasn't going to pay money for a solitaire game I hadn't tried. So, the other thing I'm selfishly happy about is if I decide to lapse Apple Arcade, I can just buy them. But Threes is on there if you haven't tried Threes.
Yeah.
And if you want something meatier, The Room 2 is on there, and we have a whole episode on the Room games. So, like, if you like puzzles, you are now a happy camper. And I have so many 5-minute games now for various levels of brain. Like, that's all I want from a subscription.
I loved the Room games when we did them for the show, and now we can add another little checkbox into how many episodes we've talked about Threes. That might be the game that we've talked about the most on this show.
It was last time I updated the spreadsheet.
Yeah, so
check. I'll also say that if you're not looking for a puzzle game, there are a couple rhythm games that I tried. Specifically, there is a game that is called Taiko Pop Tap, which I know Reagan has feelings about. It's Tap the Taiko. It's a little drum game.
Yeah, how did you like it?
I thought that I wanted more better songs because I played the classical ones, and then I found a lot of the other songs annoying, and I stopped playing.
Yeah, so I think the thing about the Taiko Drum Master series, which, like, it's weird, those don't get released over here very often. It's sort of surprising to see one in Apple Arcade at all, because, like, they've made a zillion games in that series, and, like, 2 have made it to the US. It's very unusual for them to get localized. And so the music selection in those is very Japanese. There'll be, like, sections, you have to, like, choose from the different, like, genres of music. And, like, there are things like, anime theme songs are like one of the sections, for example.
Well, I mean, it's taiko drums. I'm not expecting John Phillips.
Although, no, that's actually a category, because there's the classical music category is like the William Tell Overture, and
right. So I think if you think about Taiko Drum Master and you're thinking this is going to be like something like real like taiko drumming, I'm sure there's some tracks in there that are that, but most of what this is like. It's like a relatively simple rhythm game, and it's doing the same kind of music you'd find in most other rhythm games. So you're drumming along to pop songs, J-pop mostly, things like that. So the music in this particular entry, like I haven't played a ton of these games. I played one on the 3DS that I had to play in Japanese. And I played one on the Vita, I think. And I played the PlayStation 2 version, which I think did get an American release. And all of them had like weird selections of music, and it's very hit or miss. So, maybe it'll have stuff you're into. For me, this had you could do taiko drumming along to Cruel Angel Thesis, the theme to Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I thought was very funny and enjoyable. But I didn't find a whole lot else to enjoy yet.
Yeah, but I will say I played more of the other music game. It made me feel like I had no friends, because clearly it's made to be like played against strangers or in like a party mode, but it's called Song Party Pop. 1 second. It is called Song Pop Party. Again, those words could be in any order, so I'm not mad at myself. Song Pop Party.
Song Party.
It's just a music
Party
quiz
pop
game.
song.
You pick a category.
Pop Song Party.
They play
Pop
like
Song Party.
15 to 30 seconds of a song, and you either have to identify the artist or the song title, and then at the end you get a score. Faster you get to, the higher your points. My pet peeve in all of these, if you're going to offer a musical category, you need to have more than 3 goddamn musicals, and you can't just put Mamma Mia, because those are not musical songs. That's ABBA. Like, just like the only songs I clicked musicals, and they were like, they played 3 songs from Annie and a 10-question quiz, and I was like, no.
There are few things I enjoy more than a Laura rant, and this might be your most specific and most narrow rant, and I love it.
But then I go to a song, and they're like, British garage rock from 1965 to 19... I was like, where was the specificity in the musicals category, Song Pop Party?
Get 'em.
Laura, I'm sorry you've been done dirty by this, but
But like, I did really.
It's a very legit complaint.
Laura only gets this mad about musical theater.
Very legit complaint. I only get this mad when someone decides they want to talk for 40 minutes about.
But no,
golf
I do actually recommend this game. I think it's fun if you like music quizzes, if you miss bar trivia. It's actually super fun. Just don't, if your specific genre of music is misrepresented and you want to rant, you can. I will be a sympathetic ear. That's my rant.
All right, good rant. Shane, I think you had the last couple of things to take us out.
I do. I have 2 that are going to be maybe for specific people out here. These games, one of them really did resonate with me, but I'm probably going to be spending my time on Sneaky Sasquatch. But there's a whole wealth of like quick puzzle or quick action games in this service. One of them that was recommended by somebody in our Discord, LK Campbell. Hey, thank you for this recommendation. Is called I'm guessing you pronounce this Sping. It's SP exclamation mark. And
by the way, side note, that's Lance Campbell who wrote
one of the things from IF
who
Comp,
wrote Stuff of Legend for IF Comp, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you, Lance Campbell.
Yeah, also, congratulations on a great game there. I have not said that on the podcast yet, but the Sping here, this is like a spinning action game where you're kind of using a kind of a grappling hook. You've got a weird diamond shape that has a grappling hook onto little star shapes. It's very abstract, but it's gorgeous and has a really good soundtrack, and is something that's hard to put down. It's very, I don't know, and it's got that kind of one-touch gameplay that's so great on a mobile device. It's just a very well-polished piece of kind of mobile diversion. There's not any story or anything that would make it good for like greater discussion on this podcast, but it is great and polished and really nice looking and sounding and super fun. So I think it's a great recommendation. And then the last thing I had is one that I did kind of bounce off of, but it's also, I don't know, I might wind up going back to it a little bit more. It's called Lumen. Lumen is a really hyper tactile laser light kind of puzzle game. I think when I say like light puzzles, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, you've got little rotating mirrors and light emitters and things that like, you know, are your light targets. These games are not, this is another one that like shows up like those Sokoban puzzles as like a puzzle inside of other puzzle games. But when you put it on its own, it kind of, to me, falls a little flat. I have already played the very best version of this, which is a actual light game puzzle in a children's museum in Pennsylvania. And I played it when I was like 8 years old.
The physical version of this is great. The virtual ones, once you do that, it's hard to.
But this one, it does have a really neat twist to it, which is it's very physical. Like you're interacting with an actual puzzle box. When you launch the app, like it opens the box and you go inside and look at the app. And the result of the light is it's exposing like all of these photographs that are stored inside of the box and that kind of tell a story. And there's like a narrated kind of narrative to go along with that. So if these puzzles are your vibe, the aesthetics and like what they're doing around it is extremely good. But this is a kind of puzzle that sadly I do not care about. I should have told about these in the opposite order because it's always better to end on the high note. Guys, you should play Sping. Sping!
It's a fun name to say. Sping.
If, in fact, you pronounce the exclamation mark as an I, which I assume it's an inverted I. Maybe it's just Sping.
Maybe it's like chick, chick, chick. So it's spachicking.
I think it's for sure spachicking.
Maybe I just spit when I...
Yes.
Gotta be it.
So before we wrap up, I just thought it might be worth taking a second to talk about some recommendations from some listeners, ones that we haven't gotten to play ourselves yet, as well as just a few games that are on our lists of Apple Arcade games that are kind of things we would like to check out but haven't had the time to hit yet. John from Gaming in the Wild, thank you, friend of the show, John, recommended Shin Sekai, Alba, and the Collage Atlas. So I've only really looked in depth at Alba, which is from the same folks that made Monument Valley, but is more of like a kid wandering around an island solving eco problems. It looks short enough for us to cover and looks fun, and we might get to that someday soon. I don't know what the Collage Atlas is. I need to search arcade for that.
It looks really cool. It's like a hyper detailed, like almost like a 10-line drawing world, but I have no idea what the mechanics are. I've just watched the video and been like, ooh, this is pretty.
Yeah, and Reagan, I want you to please be careful. You just said Alba, and that's very close to ABBA, and that might send Laura into a tailspin again.
Yes.
And so let's
I respect Mamma Mia the musical. I just believe that when you're doing a category of songs from musicals, you should exclude jukebox musicals.
See?
Here we go again. My mind.
Here we go again. No!
Yeah.
It's literally Mamma Mia.
Oh, Lord.
I'm going to just go in the corner until this episode's over.
So, Shin Sekai, by the way, is the game that Capcom released as part of the launch of Apple Arcade, and I believe it's sort of like an underwater Metroidvania, and it got sort of middling reviews. It came out on Switch as well, and I don't think it exactly lit the world on fire, but it is a Capcom-developed game on Apple Arcade, which is notable in and of itself. There weren't that many Japanese games in the launch, and it looks pretty, so I would like to check that one out. If John thinks it's good, I will take his word for it. It sounds cool. Have any of you guys seen the Collage Atlas? I don't know what that one is at all.
Nope.
Well, Google it yourselves.
It
listeners.
looks really pretty. I just don't know it.
As an exercise for the listeners. Robert Hawks, the patron saint of Bird Week, recommended we check out Jenny LeClue Detective-oo. Jenny LeClue is a game...
I have played a little of that. That's good. I mean, we could do more of that.
I've been wanting to play that for years because I played it at like a preview event long before Apple Arcade was even a thing, and it was a very cute, fun seeming point and click. So I would like to check that out potentially more. And Lance Campbell recommended, you mentioned he's recommended Sping, but he also suggested we play Assemble with Care and Pilgrims. Assemble with Care in particular seems like it might be something for the show. I feel
like that's been on our list to play. Mm-hmm. Am I crazy? I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like something for us. And then for me, I've had Marble Knights and Shantae on my to play list for a while. Way Forward is a developer that I've enjoyed a lot of their games over the years, and they have 2 games on Apple Arcade. The newest Shantae game, which is also on things like the Switch and stuff. It's one of those. If you played any of the Shantae games, they're sort of Metroidvanias with a mechanic around like Shantae can transform into different animals by doing various dances. It's a fun series. I played a bunch of those games in the past, and I haven't played this newest one because when it first came out on Apple Arcade, I didn't have a good way to play it with a controller. It seems really like it should have a controller for it, but now I do, so I'm wanting to go back to that. And Marble Knights, I don't know much about it, but it seems fun. It has little like characters that are riding. It's kind of gross in a way in that it's a bunch of these little dudes who like sit on top of marbles as if they were riding them, but they also have no lower body. They like when they're sitting on their marble to roll around, they just like are a person with a marble for legs, but apparently they can swap marbles. And so I'm like, something about that grossed me out, but it also seems really fun. So looks neat.
Greg was traumatized by Wii when we were kids.
It has a Wii. They don't fall down.
I have something that I am going to check out. And Reagan, you actually called it out to me. I'm going to go ahead and check out the Star Trek Legends RPG that's on Apple Arcade. Reagan, in the Discord, you referred to me as the resident Trekkie of the show, which was frankly a little jarring at first. But then when I started thinking about it, it's like, well, I have been working my way through the entire Star Trek catalog over the last 3 years, and I talk about it a lot on the show. So I guess, that is true. So
I can't wait to talk to you about. I'm in the second season of Deep Space Nine, and I need to talk with you.
I know. I saw you. I am so excited for you. And the game itself looks like it has middling reviews, but so does like 90% of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've been enjoying that. So I think I'll probably, I am primed to enjoy this game, whether it's good or bad. So I'm going to check it out. I think I have to. If you're interested, I'm on the last season of Enterprise. Slowed down over the last couple weeks as I've had just a lot of things going on, but really excited to finish that up. And it's all right. It's cool. The 3rd season was crazy. I don't know if anyone here has watched Star Trek Enterprise, but they really went for something with season 3, and I would love to talk about it in depth because some of the most ridiculous choices Star Trek has made. But anyway, I'm going to check that out. And
Patreons, let us know if you're interested.
Yeah, if anyone wants, I wish I would have gone back and done some sort of just like recording of my way through the series, but here we are. I am 500 something episodes deep.
You mean you enjoyed something and didn't create content? Man?
I know.
How dare you?
How do I know. It's 2021. I should be smarter than that. So, anyway, I'll check it out and let you all know if I like it.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other things you want to call out as something you want to check out?
I got a big list of things that I've been intending to play since I started, but I haven't been in the right mood, and I think they're going to be good games, so I want to give them fair play, as it were. And those are Neocab, Necrobarista, Creek, which is the new game by Amantia, designs people who do Machinarium.
Oh, okay.
Mutazone, and also I have the second half of Guildlings to play. So
yeah. We covered Guildlings on the show, and I really, really enjoyed Guildlings. And then the second half of it came out, and I still haven't gone back and played that. I really want to. Mutazione is probably the one on there that I'm like the most interested in playing, but I'm also pretty sure it's too long for the show. And it's also a lengthy point and click adventure game. Those are ones that I have a hard time completing. So
yeah, all of these seem like they could be episodes. So I will confess that's part of the reason why I probably I've been like, oh, I'll play it for the show, and then we haven't quite gotten to it yet. So we'll find out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. If you want to support the show, or just chat with us about the things that we are talking about. Chat with us about other Apple Arcade games that you're playing. Chat with us about Star Trek, whatever you're interested in chatting with us about. The best way to do that is to support us on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/theshortgame, and for even just $1 a month or more, no limits, you can do whatever you would like. You can become one of our patrons and join us on our Discord. Our Discord is where we talk about the show, we plan the episodes, we chat about what's coming up next. So it's a great place to interact with us, to recommend games, etc. So join us there. We would be very happy to have you. And of course, you can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll find our contact form, link to all of our other various relevant stuff. You can find us on Twitter @_shortgame, which is also a great place to recommend games or just let us know how you're doing. And of course, you can find me on Twitter @RayganK. That's RayGank. Laura, where can people find you?
On Twitter @Laura J. Nash.
Nate, where can people find you?
On Twitter @NateSTL.
And Shane, where can people find you?
Also on Twitter @8BitShane.
And listeners, once again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.